listening to Alaska After Dark, internet radio for Nightkind.
My guest tonight is Julia Caples, also known as DarkRose. She's a pioneer of the vampire community since the 1980s. She's helped cultivate the vampire subculture. You're the author of DarkRose Journal that began in 1994, is that correct?
That is correct.
You have other publications, including Blood's Truth, and I believe it's called Kaleidoscope of Butterflies.
Yes, that is coming out this autumn.
Now that's got me curious. What is that about?
It is about, I guess you can label it living human vampirism, but it is not going to use the word vampire one time. So I've already thrown out the first manuscript because I had to rewrite it because I'm not going to use that word. I want to reach everybody because obviously reaching just the vampire community is not working. So people need to understand that for a lot of us, this is how we are born and this is what we do. And we don't need to necessarily be pigeonholed into the Hollywood stigma of what a vampire is. So let's educate the world without using that word. That's what a Kaleidoscope of Butterflies is.
You've been in the media for quite a bit. You've had many interviews, including the Ricki Lake episode from 1996 that we're going to reflect on tonight. Now,
Awesome.
The strange thing about it is I was researching something somewhat unrelated and the video came up. I watched it and I found it to be like a time capsule.
It is.
How did you get approached with this interview? Did they reach out to you?
Yes. Actually, that was my first television interview, and that came on the wings of the book Something in the Blood. And the reason they reached out to me, I'd already been publishing the journal since '94, but Martin V. Ricardo, a very well-known vampirologist, especially in the 80s and 90s, well, 70s, 80s, and 90s. He wrote Liquid Dream of Vampires for Llewellyn, published it. He was interviewed in the book, and I also interviewed him for one of my journals, one of my issues, and he began singing my praises after the interview, and because of him, I just got inundated with media. It was the way he described me to people seeking a more, the nonfiction side of vampirism, blood drinking, and he was just putting my name out there. And that's really how it happened. So they came to me. Other than Something in the Blood interview, that was really my introduction to media.
Now, we had talked before about this interview once I had it posted on Facebook. You mentioned something about Ricki Lake didn't want to do the episode?
No. I didn't know that until we were all there in the green room, and because we all only dealt with the producers, of course, until then. And I'd already known Vlad, who was up there on the panel with me, and I'd already known through the book, Something in the Blood, Christine Dark. I didn't know the other people at the time, other than my fiance sitting next to me. But I just met everybody, then in the green room. After the producers, gave us the rundown and, oh, come on, go out there and please, be excited, how they tell you to act. And Ricki Lake comes back before we go out there, and she just let us know point blank she didn't agree with, she didn't know anything about us really, but she didn't agree with what we were doing. She thinks this is not verbatim, obviously, that basically it's sick, she didn't use the word evil, but that's what she was generalizing us as, which is curious, being that she was, so supposedly open-minded about all kinds of other lifestyles. But she let us know, and you could tell from the episode that she really didn't want to give us any leeway, to come off sounding, to seem like we knew at all what we were talking about, or that we were anything but just, delusional.
Okay, so you're up on the stage, and I believe you were introduced first, and then they introduced Miriam.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on her?
Well, I didn't know anything about her, never met her before that. I really didn't give her another thought until, I don't know, 96 to 2013, when she let me know through the community who she was and that we had met before. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't realize that was you. My thoughts now, looking back on it, is really I'm the one that's labeled the embarrassment for the whole community, and I'm looking at her on the panel, and then, you know, Todd Hoyt, Father Sebastian in the audience in his awesome cape and top hat. I'm like, yeah, and I'm the embarrassment. I'm bringing reality. I'm not wearing fangs. I'm not pretending I can make you into a slave by staring at you. I'm just saying, hey, I'm a mother, I'm a writer, yeah, and I drink human blood like on a regular basis. And so, you know, but I'm the embarrassment. So looking back on it, I didn't watch that episode until you tagged me in it, and I'm like, what is going on here? Because obviously then I didn't know who those people were, most of them, until, you know, later, you know, a decade later. So
yeah, I didn't realize that was Todd until you pointed it out. I did go back and I looked up Miriam, and yes, that is Goddess Rosemary.
Yes, it is, from House to Haja.
And I didn't even think about it. I was like, she looks familiar. And it was like...
Yeah, well, it is, because she told me in a phone conversation in 2013, yeah, you know, we met before, and she had to point that out to me, because I didn't even put it, you know, like I said, I didn't even put it together.
She had some interesting responses.
Yeah.
Especially, she could make people her slaves. There was quite a bit. There was quite a bit of responses that would just...
I'm not a member of House Tahaja, so I don't know if that's common practice in the house. I don't know. I don't know anything.
In a way, you came off as the most sane person on that stage.
Thank you. And I've been told that before. So, and I actually made a lot of contacts off that show, other professional writers. One of my closest friends is a big name writer in the comic book industry. I'm not going to say his name because, you know, I made a lot of friends off of that one episode. I met a lot of interesting people.
Now we'll just kind of work our way down a little bit. There was Dust, the woman in the hood.
That's who that is. I couldn't... Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know who that... I mean, I don't know. I didn't know who that was then. I don't know who that is now. Is that somebody known in the community?
See, I don't know. The impression I get is, okay, you came out of Florida. I'm going to guess that Ricki Lake was filming in front of a live audience in New York.
Yes.
Because it was too easy for them to go back to Miriam's lair.
Oh, right.
And examine all the things that are... which didn't really amount to anything. There wasn't any signs. You see a bell, you see the tarot cards, but how does that really relate? The one issue I had was there's this mirror that's like way high. It's like at the bottom of its eye level, and I couldn't understand why would somebody hang a mirror that high. The apartment was a mess. I kind of get the impression, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, they had all the people from Something in the Blood. Because you had Vlad, you had yourself, you had Christine, you also had the author, Jeff Gwynn, I believe. And then Gwynn, yes. Being in New York, I'm wondering if possibly other people locally were answering the call.
Oh, I'm sure. The audience, if you look at the when they're panning to the audience, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I think I remember that person. I think I remember that person from my time in New York. I mean, yeah, clearly they filled the audience with a lot of the local scene. That's what I think.
What were your thoughts on the social vampires that had come in that were like at the far left?
You know what? I have no recollection of it. I mean, I remember them now that you're saying it. I remember them sitting. I do remember that happening. I don't have any thoughts. I'm sorry. I hate to do.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of.
That's the impression it left on me. So.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna give you kind of a refresher. The woman in the group, the ones that were claiming to be social vampires, she goes, "I think there are rooms in Bellevue with your names on them."
Oh, that's
and
right.
Then
oh
you
my
said,
God, you said it. Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, yes.
And then you turned around and you said, "They are judging people they don't even know." And then I think it was one of them, the one at the far end, goes, "These people are who scare normal people on the street." And then is it Marcus or Mark?
Yeah, my then Marcus.
Right.
Yeah, my then
He redirects and says, "In reality, you're the wannabe." And then the other guy says, "No, I don't want to be an idiot." But, you know, out of all of them, you seem to be the one that would speak up.
Right. And that is why publicity has hounded me ever since, because I'm not actually an extroverted person at all. But when you're talking about something that's my life and you get me in front of people, I get, you know, really animated and I will stand up for myself. And I'm not an idiot. And I am, you know, self-educated, and I can, you know, I can throw a word out here and there that makes sense. So, you know, the media likes to speak to me because I don't do the things. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not me. I'm not a lifestyler, which is nothing wrong with that. But I am a blood drinker. Complete, you know, that's why I'm trying to separate the word vampire, because I'm a blood drinker. I'm just me. And this is who I am.
I'm going to go back to Christine Dark, okay. I believe. She was part of the book, Something in the Blood. What were your thoughts on her? I think she didn't feel like she got anything fair out of that episode.
Well, I have the book right here in front of me. I'd have to go back and kind of pull it on my shelf. I have to go back and look at her chapter, but I recall that the general consensus among not only a few of us in the book, but at that time, the early community was in the, gosh, and if she's listening, I'm so sorry, but I didn't know her. I only know what I read and what was written about her and how she responded on the stage. It was like, I hope that's not what the rest of the public thinks we are like. You know, and I'm sure, I mean, that was a long time ago, and I don't know her now. I didn't know her then, just sleeping in a coffin, saying that, you know, I guess it was that she was turned into this, or I don't remember the whole story, and I don't want to, you know, repeat it incorrectly. I'd have to read it out of the book, but it's just like eating raw meat or what. I mean, none of that applies to me, so I couldn't relate. I can't relate to her story. I don't sleep in a coffin. I don't want to sleep in a coffin. I don't eat raw meat. Gross. You know, I feel happy and positive and good about who I am and how I live. So does that make sense? I can't relate to her at all.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to understand what was going on. She did relate that she met a man in 1990, joined his band. It was almost like a Manson thing, I believe she said. She didn't want to call him a vampire, but that was the best word that she could find at the time. It was hard to see or picture what brought her to this point where, okay, she's wearing fangs, she's sleeping in a coffin, but that's as far as it went. I'm not sure where she was trying to lead into, but I think her focus was more on I was attacked by a vampire, and that was her thing. But I don't think her story came across coherently. It was like maybe Ricki was trying to dig at something that wasn't there.
Oh, I'm sure. She seemed more, you know, like you just said, whatever her reasons are, that she felt she had to live that way, or maybe she was attacked in a way that was, I'm sure any attack is horrible. So however she was dealing with it psychologically, I mean, obviously Ricki Lake wasn't there to help anybody through anything or to shed light on anything. That's not what that episode was for.
I think she was siding with the audience in the whole really skeptical outlook, especially with that Romanian woman, the one that said this has nothing to do with Dracula. That woman.
Oh yeah.
You should remember her. Because there was a part in there. There was a part in there where you addressed the woman directly, you know, and said the woman from Romania who is so hostile. And you said, no one mentioned Dracula, Bram, Stoker, nothing. We never claimed that. She is very hostile for no reason.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And it's true. It's pretty true.
Yeah.
It's like, where did this come from? And I noticed Konstantinos was in the audience.
Yeah, because I didn't know who he was then, but I know now. So yeah.
It's like, who's that really tall dude?
Well, the Romanian was I believe Vlad on the panel with me told me that she was a plant, and of course he had done another show or two before this, because he's in a band and whatever. But he said that that Romanian lady for sure was a plant.
That makes sense. I kind of got the impression that some of those people were plants. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of got the impression that Todd came in with Goddess Rosemary, sat down, and was somewhere along the lines was one of the people that was chosen to stand up and ask a question. He was asking something about, were you guys into the vampire theme before you were getting into the blood sport or anything like that? That's what he asked.
Marcus answered that. Yeah, I think Marcus answered that.
Yeah, he did. He did. And then from there, we kind of moved into the far end, which was the social vampires that were having problems with everybody else to their right. What?
Right. Everybody to the right.
Yeah, pretty much. And then it got to the point where the show was about to end with, I think it was Dr. Stephen Novella, who didn't really have much to say other than he was a skeptic, and that here's all these extraordinary claims, but they haven't produced any evidence. And then everybody was all up for it. And then I think it was you that said something about, well, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to suck blood?
Right.
Are you going to show that on television? And then Ricki Lake's all like, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to witness that. And I think it was, do you want him to bite me? Do you have a razor? And everyone else wanted to see it. And then you were like, what can we do? And I was like, well, how are you supposed to present this? And even in the title of the episode, I think it was, I'm a vampire and I'm going to prove it to you, or something like that. Am I here to prove it? How do you do that? If she's not going to allow anything, how are you supposed to prove it? I mean, I'm thinking that maybe the psychic vampires are supposed to make somebody faint, and who knows? That could have been a plant, and somebody would have probably said, "Oh no, he's part of the group. This is all arranged." You can have that too. So yeah, it was nuts. But I did like what Jeff Gwynn had to say, where he was claiming that the dedicated blood drinkers call the movie influence wannabes as kids in capes. And they're also the ones who would end up being cowboys the next time around.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
And I believe after that, I guess Goddess Rosemary had to give her little 2 cents on that. I'm a cowgirl. I'm from out west, and I eat raw steak. You bet. I'm not sure where that was supposed to go, but she kept going on talking, and Jeff was kind of like, "Okay, yeah, mm-hmm."
Yeah. Right. That's right. Good boy. That's good. You remember more than I do.
There was, I believe, an audience member that was toward the end was directing his question at Dust, where she had made extraordinary claims of being psychically drained people. I offer myself, would you drain me, please? And she was like, I can't do it here. Why would I want to be with an audience who wants to crucify me?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then toward the end, the only thing Ricki had to say that was, I don't know, what can she say? That she closes with, sharing and drinking blood is not safe. And then the program was over. So I remember further on when we were discussing this episode, was it Todd was trying to get into your the vehicle that you're going back to your hotel? What was going on with that?
Yeah. So Marcus and I, we were exiting the studio, and they, we're getting in the car that the studio provided, and limo, and we're in the back, and here's Todd. All of a sudden, there's a pounding on the window, and it's Todd and his minions, I guess, pounding on the window, and Marcus is looking at me. I'm like, I don't know, roll the window down. So he rolls it down there, and he's like, hey. I'm not doing a good Todd impression, but hey, can we come back to your hotel with you and party? Something. That's not verbatim, but that was what he was asking. I don't know if he said party, but I think it was hang out or something. And Marcus just like, no, man. He puts up the window, and we left. So that was the first time I ever met Todd.
Were they chasing the limo?
Yeah, chasing the limo.
Did they chase it?
I I don't think so, and I really don't. I don't think so. They did after the window went back up, kept pounding on it. Come on, and we're just like, just go.
You know, it had me curious. Marcus had made the comment about the audience was expecting Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, that kind of thing. I can't remember exactly how he put it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, the audience is looking for Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. They're expecting the Immortals to show up. I mean, I'm going to guess that.
Right.
Okay, let's see. The movie came out maybe around what, 94? Interview with a
That's
Vampire.
I was just talking about this the other day with somebody, and I said, here's what happened is that really Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire came out in the 70s. It didn't really have a good reception. It wasn't until after Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula was released in 92 that after that, all of a sudden, Interview with the Vampire, the book, all of a sudden it was making rounds and it was being picked up by housewives and everybody was reading it. Then the movie came out not long after. That is correct. And then that's when I published, I'm not trying to relate it to me, but I put out the journal because I was trying to get away from that and find real blood drinkers, because even though there were a lot of zines available, there were a lot of unsung heroes that people don't even remember that were putting out stuff. It was still somehow, including Michelle Ballinger's own, she had her own little zine, which was very well done, but it was all fiction. It was all role-playing or fiction, and there was nothing real. So so Marcus is correct. By the time we get to the Ricki Lake stage in 96, it's exactly when you said the word vampire, that's all people all of a sudden knew. It seems to me the Ricki Lake episode and Something in the Blood, they go hand in hand, and when you look at the people that are on the stage, the people in the audience, and what was actually happening back then, those people, at least two of them, one on the stage and the one in the audience, Goddess Rosemary and Todd, I can't bring myself to call him father, Todd, those two hung in there. Obviously, we all know what happened with Todd. He did his thing and he left, and then Goddess Rosemary is still in there. So this is just what I think. I think that has been squashed and continues to get squashed, because if I were them, I wouldn't want people to see that. I'm just saying, because, if you can make people your slaves by just looking at them, that's like, come on. Give me a break. And you want the world to take us seriously, and you're on TV saying stuff like that? So, so I don't know. It just seems to me that some people within that community, which I'm really not a part of anymore, just on the fringes, work hard to make sure people don't remember those things. And then there's so many people coming in the community because of the internet that it's just a whole different climate than obviously it was in the mid to late 90s and the early 21st century. It's just I can't even process what the community is now.
Well, Miss Julia DarkRose, I appreciate your time. Hopefully we can do this again.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you reaching out to me, and you asked some great questions, and you're the only one who's asked me these questions, so thank you, and we will do this again. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.